harmonizing with nature. With over 4 decades of changing lives, your self-discovery archaeologist, get ready to be the best of you with your host, Beverly Zymet.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Beverly Zymet Show, where being that best you has just gotten easier. And my guest today is going to prove that. Her name is Katie Nall. She's calling in from Vero Beach, Florida, right?
Correct, Beverly. Vero Beach, Florida, where the tropics begin.
Ooh, where the tropics begin. I was going to say California. It's like, well, that's not right. I think
it's close.
It's close.
We're on the same continent.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know that. No, I think I have California on the brain because over here in Colorado it's starting to get cold, and it's like California's a lot closer than Florida, and yeah, I think it's time for a trip. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think we're all ready to move forward, right?
Oh, I'll tell you, it's been crazy, but I have to admit my time, that I've had in just being stuck in one spot where I'm not used to because I'm always on the go. I've made the best of it. I started a new job of working in virtual reality, and so I needed high-speed internet. We got all this stuff going, so it's given me an opportunity to be in one spot to kind of really get that off the ground and build. So I'm not going to complain. I am just not too sure about this cold weather coming right now.
How creative you, Beverly, to identify, so many good things that are coming out of this. The idea that you had to stop. I think all of us in one way or another had to stop, even those that still had to go to work. You had to change and stop, and that you found an outlet, right, to be able to do this fabulous service you're doing for so many to help each one of us to become our very best. I think it's fabulous.
We've had a good time with the show. When I started it, it was just kind of like I wanted to do something different. I wanted to, I guess, more or less prove to myself that, hey, I can do this myself, right? Professionally and everything. It's like, what the heck, Because I've done shows before. I've been in the face of the camera a lot, and it's like, hey, let's do something different. I started this in March, actually, just prior to everything. And I was in New Mexico at the time, and I was supposed to be there for 2 weeks. So it was a stopover, right? Well, the stopover ended up 2 months. It was crazy. But my friend and I got a really good time, catching up with everything and doing some work. And that's where the show kind of launched, was in New Mexico. And but it's been fun. I have met some of the most outstanding women. I mean, totally outstanding women. It's ironic who you can meet, when you just like open up. And so for me, this show has been refreshing, enlightening, empowering, and the listeners are getting so much good tidbits out of it, because we talk about so many different things. And it being organic, it really gives you an opportunity to just let come out versus making it, question answer, and all pre-done. And I don't like that. I don't like to be, it's almost like being a drill sergeant, I guess, Okay, now let me ask you this question, so I don't function that way. So
this way feels much more like a conversation between friends, and I think that's what you do so well.
Oh, thank you. And it really is a conversation between friends. But the thing is I would say 95% of the people that have been on my show, I've never talked to or seen until they come onto this Zoom and click, here we are.
Wow.
And by the time the show ends, it's like all of a sudden you're best friends, You just really get to know each other. You get that feel. You get that comfortableness, right? So it's I enjoy that. I really enjoy that. So Katie, what is it that you do down there in Vero Beach, floor?
Well, I do a lot of things. I don't do as many things as you do, Beverly. But,
Well, it's because I've been on the planet longer.
well, I don't know. You might be surprised.
We'll have to talk about that one.
Yeah. When you talk about being the very best, one of my strongest things that I hold on to is I'm an advanced certified practitioner in emotional freedom technique, or tapping. And I've been doing that for 10 years now.
Nice.
I've gone through, I know as long as you have, but I've gone through levels 1, 2, 3, trauma, and quantum. So we can talk about.
That's amazing. I know a lot of people, a lot of my friends, and cohorts, shall we say, have done tapping, and it works. It's very powerful when you talk about energy healing and stuff, right? Tapping is just a form of energy, and it's your body's ability to release that old stored baggage that's no longer needed, that's stuck in that cell and just wants to keep on running like a broken record, right? Which a lot of people might not know what a broken record is, but we do, right? It's a great way to do that, and working, in the energy healing arts and stuff it's been, for me now, it's been over 45 years, which is really pretty awesome. And but there's so many different modalities, and that's what I love about this show as well. So not only do I meet these amazing women, I get to listen to all these neat things that they do, because I worked in the emotional healing as well. That's kind of one of my specialties. And there's always room for more. And that's what fascinates me the most, because, oh man, I get firsthand information if there's something that I don't know. And my travels on the road, I've been traveling since 97, going from city to city, and, little quirks all over the place. There are modalities that you don't always run into when you're in one place. So I was able to really get a lot of different modalities under my belt and training from being in all these different areas. So, but being on the show here has just opened up a lot of other ways, which I'm so excited about. So go ahead and tell us all about the depth and what you're doing in your tapping, because I don't know anybody that's been on that many levels of tapping before. So starting from the beginning and going to where you are, what are those levels?
So, if you don't mind, I have a question for you, Beverly.
Sure.
You were talking about going from town to town and meeting all these new people. I know that as I started learning about tapping and energy healing, even in our small community, trying to identify the other people who are open and on board to this, as you went from town to town, how did you identify and seek out the people who had the same kind of interest as you?
They found me.
They found you. Okay. What do you have on the back of your RV? Like, come find me, or?
No, it's on my back here. Let me show you.
It's on your back.
It was interesting. I'm not really sure how everything just kind of started snowballing.
Yeah.
I'd have a workshop set up in one area. And different people would come and say, well, how do I get you to come to my place? I said, book me. Okay.
There you go.
And so it kind of started snowballing like that. But it's like you run in these circles, and that energy, just kind of attracts to you, and but I'll tell you, things have really changed. When it got to be, I would say probably around 2007, 2010, in between that era, so much started being online, with online courses and everything, right? And so butts in the seats were like becoming a thing of the past, and it's like,
right.
Wait a minute, this isn't supposed to happen like this, and things have changed, but you get resourceful and you flow with the change and you pick up. But I mean, look at me now. I'm working in virtual reality. I don't know if you know what virtual reality is.
I do.
And so it's pretty interesting to be able to do business on that platform, because especially now, because we're so separated. you know, and being on the virtual reality platform, you get immersed in there. Now we don't have to use those Oculus glasses on the platforms that we're using, but you still become immersed onto that platform. And then when you're there, avatar to avatar, because our avatars look like human beings, right? They have all their legs and arms and fingers and nose, and you know, it's not a cartoon character, so it looks like a real human, and you're interacting in there. So the mind, because we know the mind is powerful, you're going to be sharing that when you start the tapping thing. You know, it's so powerful that it says this is really somebody here. And so to be able to have that synergism back is really awesome. It's really, really awesome, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to talk about that anymore. Let's go back into, so you asked me a question, how people find me. You know, it's the same way people kind of navigate to you when all of a sudden you open up, you know, and you're out there in the forefront. But I went into health food stores. I went into the metaphysical bookstores, you know, and did talks and stuff, and they put me on their rosters and stuff, and so people would come in, and that just kind of started building things. And I've got some really, really great friends all over the world because of the interactions that I've had, you know, all this time, you know, being able to just drive around and just enjoy life. And so
that's fabulous. So my journey began 10 years ago. I was a mature student, returning to school to accomplish one of my dreams, Beverly. And one of my dreams since the time I was 18 years old was to earn my PhD.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I was at the part where I was doing research for my dissertation. The subject matter I was studying is math education. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to work with students, primarily adults, who wanted to come back to school for whatever reason, whether it was a technical certificate, you know, less than 1 year, a 2-year associate's degree, a 4-year bachelor's degree, a master's degree, whatever. But there was always one class that was holding them back. Can you guess which one it was?
I'm going to say math.
Math.
You know how I knew that?
I'm guessing because it may be something that you struggled with, maybe.
No, I'm psychic.
Oh, you're psychic. That's it. Okay, good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. And so I wanted to help students that were struggling with math. And I would talk to the students. I look at their schedules. They were doing very well in other subjects.
Right.
Why was math being such a deterrent? I couldn't figure it out. So I started doing all my research on it. And as I talked to the students, I realized that even if I said, okay, the only class you have left is math, Beverly, I could watch their face turn red, just going up from it. And they could water the plants in my office with the sweat coming off their hands.
Oh my goodness.
They had so much fear and so much anxiety, even when I said the word math. And I said, oh my gosh, well, what can I do here? I'll say the word history, or how about English, or something else
Right.
that can get you stabilized a little bit more, right? Couldn't figure it out. So I went off on a research to find out what is the best way to help people overcome math anxiety and math fear. And you know what I found out? We'll see what your psychic says now.
No, you share that with the audience. This is your story now. Nothing?
Nothing. There's nothing to help students overcome fear and anxiety about math. So I'm thinking, okay, this is sounding kind of like a word problem.
You know, and that's true. There's so, you know, when you said word problem, there are so many miscommunications just by one word because of culture differences.
Yep.
Right? And just location differences. You know, you could be in this conversation, everybody's all happy and everything, and one word comes out of your mouth, and all of a sudden somebody's like, you know, and you're like, what did I say?
What was it? Yeah.
Right? It's an interpretation of just one word, not intentional, right? So word association is very, very powerful and very detrimental sometimes. right?
Mm-hmm. So I was finding no solutions with that word problem, so I changed the problem.
Well,
I,
that's a good way to do it.
I changed the problem. So instead of looking for how to help students overcome their math anxiety, I look for how do you help people overcome anxiety in general.
Right.
And that's when I ran into Nick Ortner's Tapping Summit. And it was a 10-day, every day there was somebody different talking about tapping. And so I watched intently and got all the information, bought the book, bought the DVD, taught myself tapping. And working at a college as a staff member, students would come in, only have one class left to finish. I'm like, let me guess, I know what it is. And I'm not even a psychic. It's got to be math. Yep, sure enough. So I ended up talking to students who were desperate. And as it turns out, desperate clients are the very best. Because
you've got their full attention because they want it, right?
Yeah, I need to have this. Okay, so what can we do? I said, well, I have no idea if this is going to work or not, but let's just try this stuff. And so we tried the tapping, and Beverly, what happened is student after student after student was coming back into my office and saying, Dr. Nall, I never got an A in math before. Dr. Nall, I got 100 on my math exam. Dr. Nall, I'm going to be able to get my bachelor's degree now, thanks to that voodoo stuff, as one student called it.
Yeah, I was, you know what, I actually, that's interesting. When someone doesn't understand anything, it's called a voodoo, right? And I actually just kind of, as a joke, I had business cards because I had an essential oil business, right? And so I specialized in making formulas, and I think I had like 280 different formulas that I did.
Wow.
Yeah, I dealt directly with the distillers and everything, right? So it was big, and I used it in my workshops. Well, I was teased a lot about voodoo stuff, right? So I just called it voodoo vapors, right?
Oh, that's cute.
It's and again, it's a word,
right? Yeah.
It's a word. Some people can get really nervous and scared with that word voodoo, and others are like, they take it lightly because they understand it works.
Yeah.
But there's science behind everything. And when you begin to understand that, it changes the whole theory of everything that we knew. So when you look at physics and you look at metaphysics, you want to talk math, right? So you've got the physics and the metaphysics. And that is all science, and it is a form of math, right? Well, they used to be like on different planets. You talk about planets, right?
Literally.
And now they're actually sleeping in the same bed under the same covers, right? Because what metaphysics always knew and believed, physics now has the science to prove. So was it voodoo? No, it was science, right?
Something new and different, and they didn't know how to explain it. Right. And I said, well, that's great. If you can explain the internet to me, I'll explain tapping to you.
There you go. Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I started with that, and I did that for a couple of years, and I actually did a TEDx talk about relieving math anxiety.
Oh, wonderful.
And then I thought, I'm thinking maybe I should get certified because I really have no idea what I'm doing.
Right.
And so, Beverly, I went and I got trained, and as it turned out, I had no idea what I was doing.
There's so much more behind the scenes, like everything, right?
Yeah. And tapping is like a sharp knife. When it's used properly, it can be incredibly useful. And when it's not used properly, it can be very damaging.
Well, yeah, you can cut your finger like I did the other day.
Oh, that hurts. Did you put black pepper on it to stop the bleeding?
No, I just squeezed it and it stopped. So
there you go. So I said I better go get trained. So I went through tapping's level 1 and 2, which are the beginning ones, where basically they teach you the techniques of tapping, and they teach you the very basic techniques. And level 3 teaches you a little more advanced techniques. And the trauma tapping really should be required for everyone, because you have no idea when you sit down and you talk to someone about tapping that it may seem innocuous, and then you get started and it turns out it's based on a huge trauma event. For instance, way before I was trained, I had a student come in and said, I've got math anxiety. I said, okay, well, let's get started. And I would start tapping with them and we'd go through everything. And I'd say, so when was the first time that you feel like, you really had this anxiety about math? And they said, well, I was in college. I said, okay, well, let's tap on it. And I said, so what happened in college that gave you anxiety? Well, I went up to my dorm room right after a math test, and I didn't think I'd done so well. And then as I went to my dorm room, I saw that my roommate had committed suicide.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, Beverly. I was like, oh my gosh, that's huge. So it had nothing to do with math, and everything to do with the association of thinking.
So every time you had a math test, what did you see? That flash of, and
exactly.
Katie, that is so relevant in so many instances.
Oh yeah.
That the traumas that have stuck in our memory banks really have nothing to do with what has surfaced, because it's an association, one thing with another. Right, and to work through that and to have that understanding was amazing. And you also made note of something, when you said you started doing this training, you said, man, I found out I didn't know anything about this tapping thing. Well, obviously you knew something, because what? These kids were having success and overcoming just by doing what you did and, self-taught, right? And why do you believe that is?
I think, Beverly, it has to do with the process. I think that the tapping itself is so powerful that that's what it was, just the process.
I think that's part of it, but I think it goes back even further. Your intention was.
Yes.
Intention.
Yes.
I'm a firm believer on intention, right? So when you have the intention that something is going to work, it's like the placebo. So here you have these, like you said, these desperate kids coming in, and it's like, I've got to pass this. I don't know what to do, right? They're desperate.
Yes.
So now you've given them something to believe in, even if it was foo-foo or voodoo or whatever. They didn't care.
Right.
They believed in you. They believed in the system that this was going to work. Something, nothing else has worked. This has got to work, right? Yeah. And it did. So it's their belief. It's your intention. And again, now the processing again with that tapping, which broke those things free, and the student surrendering to the circumstances, right? So once they surrender to the circumstance of something, now they give it up.
Right.
And so
but they had to participate in that as well. You're right.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. So after that, then after the trauma, then I got an invitation to be trained by Australian trainer Jenny, and about past lives, and that was fascinating. That was fascinating.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, I love past life information, because it just,
So I was able to identify a few of my own past lives, and now with my clients, they have been able to identify some of their past lives. I had, I'll share an interesting story. I had one client who had a recurring backache, right next to, between her spine and her hip, and there wasn't anything she could do, and she was actually a chiropractor, and nothing would help this. And she said, well, do you think we should tap? And Beverly, what I have found is that when I tap with clients, I usually schedule 3 1-hour sessions, at least 24 hours apart, to give the body a chance, right?
Right, so acclimating in between,
Exactly. And so as we were going through the sessions, I was using some of our techniques and going through I said, well, let's just try this past life. What the heck, right? Nothing else is showing up. Let's try that. So we tried that, and it turns out that she recalls being stabbed in the back, and it killed her in a previous life. And once we release that and let it go,
Right.
the pain disappeared.
Yeah. And that is so amazing. I do a lot of psychic surgery.
Oh,
Okay?
yeah.
Yeah. And again, we have those kind of results because
Mhm.
when you see what's hanging around here in the energy,
Mhm.
you recognize where knives have been, or
Yeah.
bullets have been, or hangings
Yeah.
have been, or even brick walls that we build up for protection. All these different
Right.
things are solidified in the energy field. And when
Mhm.
you psychically tune into that and remove it, the shifting is amazing and it's instant.
Yes.
So there's a lot of different modalities. It doesn't matter what you do, it matters that you do something.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Right.
again, it goes back into that trusting and
Mhm.
that believing that,
Mhm.
okay, nothing else has worked, I'm game.
Right.
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 And
Right.
just be
Right. Right.
open, just really be open
Mhm.
to it and let it happen, because
Mhm.
these things really work. We are an energy being.
Yep.
We live on an energy planet. So if you watch this planet, it's constantly moving. And so are we. That's
Mhm.
energy, right? So when you really grasp hold of energy, and what is energy? Energy is that nasty word math. Isn't it ironic how things come full circle,
Always.
Right?
Always. Always.
Right?
Always. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So that's my story, and that's what I do. And now, of course, not only do I work with students who have fear and anxiety about math, but the term I use, I work with everyone who's ready to dissolve their waffles, their worries, their anxiety, their fear, frustrations, lethargy, exhaustion, and stress.
when I read that, when you sent that over, I'm like, waffles. Now this is good because she's got the waffle system. I got the rah rah. Oh man, we can have waffles and rah rah, right? And again, it's end result the
Mm-hmm.
same,
Mm-hmm.
just two different journeys, different
Sure.
paths.
Sure.
You know, and again, it's what you feel comfortable with. Not everyone's
Right.
going to feel comfortable tapping. Not everyone's going to feel
No.
comfortable rah
Mm-hmm.
rahing. And so there's some other things that you can do,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you search until you find what's
Right.
the perfect fit for you,
Right.
because it's there. It's really
Mm-hmm.
there, and
Mm-hmm.
then, and if you're struggling with that, maybe you really need to ask yourself the one question: what do I fear the most?
Mm-hmm.
Is
And
it the
some
actual
people,
change, right?
exactly. Some
That
people fear progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
it
They're
is
very
because,
comfortable where they are.
yeah.
Yeah.
I ask a lot of my clients, when because they've been trying to overcome things, right? It's like, well, let me ask you one question. So you don't have to answer it out loud, but you need to answer it to yourself. So lie to the world at this point, but don't lie to yourself. What would you have to do then that you don't have to do now? So once
Mm-hmm.
once that has been conquered, once you deleted the fuel that's feeding this issue, what would you have to do then that you don't have to do now? I'll
Mm-hmm.
tell you, the one that has stuck with me the most over the years was an elderly lady. She was like 60, 62,
That's
and
not so elderly. Excuse me. But yeah, okay.
but she had cancer, and she
Mm.
owned a health food store.
Oh.
Okay, and she was home, and so we were talking about that, right? And I said to her, I said, so why is it that you created this? So what would you have to do then if you were without that, if you were cancer free? What would you have to do then that you don't have to do now? She said, I have to go back to work at that health food store. She says, I'm way over it. I'm done. My husband is pushing me and pushing me. We have to be there. We have to be there. It's been, it's doing well. My presence isn't needed there. His presence isn't needed there because it has a life of its own.
Mm.
Yet the only way she could escape
Mm-hmm.
was to create something,
Right.
and that something was cancer,
Mm.
to keep her from being there,
Yeah.
right? Because she had conquered it,
Mm-hmm.
and then he hammered her to pieces, to go back, And it was like, wow, the only freedom she could do was to reinvent the wheel, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, so again, really be conscious, start really looking at what's behind the scenes.
Right.
What's behind the scenes and what keeps you there, right?
Yeah. Why are you
Yeah.
comfortable there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Beverly, this has been absolutely amazing. I am just so honored and thrilled to be on your show and to share a little bit of my story and to get to know you better. I so understand how all of your guests become best friends.
Well, thank you. It's I'll tell you, it's been a pleasure. I would love to see the day, and who knows, maybe 2021, in the summer of 2021, we can all pick a beautiful spot, you know, and I can bring all these women together, and we can have just a big celebration, you know.
That would be awesome. Let's do it.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan.
I'm on
Yeah.
board with that one.
All righty.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier, and just before we pushed go on the show, that you wanted me to be your guinea pig at tapping. So what are we going to tap about?
So, for those in your audience the very few who may not know about tapping, why don't we just do a little tapping exercise? You mentioned that it's hard being stuck in Colorado. Is that right?
No, I've already cleaned that one up. Let's go into let's go into something, because I mean, let's look at what's happening in today. Everyone has concern about finances. So that's going to really cover everyone out here. So it's something that they can associate with, right?
Great.
Yeah.
So we actually have a mastermind on prosperity. So let's talk about prosperity.
Yes, talk about that and what it can do, with different blocks and stuff like that. Because I think this is something that our listeners can relate to.
Yeah.
So let's make sure that they can tap right along with us and get an impact, right?
Well, and I would encourage all your listeners to tap along with us anyway, because even if they don't have that particular issue, they may have something called borrowing
benefits. But they still
benefits.
do. They just haven't recognized it.
Yeah.
We all got
exactly.
it, right? We all got it. So
when we talk about finances, I'll just ask you in general, when you think about finances, what emotion is coming up?
Oh gosh, let's see. What emotions come up when I think about finances?
No wrong answer, and if you don't want to say it, you don't have to.
No, there's several of them, so, and it's kind of a succession thing, that happens. When finances come up, it's like, oh, nobody's going to have money to use my services because everyone is without a job, right? Sound like, people can relate with that, right?
Oh, yeah,
That's
sure.
a strong emotion, right? And it's like,
so what emotion, how does that make you feel?
How
when
would
you
that
think
make
that
me feel?
no one's got the money. When no one has the money to buy your services, what emotions?
It's like, what am I going to do now? It's like, how am I going to pay my bills, right?
How am I going to pay my bills?
So those two go side and side, right?
And what emotion is that?
I would say that's probably, it's based on the fear, but it's kind of makes you anxious, so it's kind of like an anxiety.
Okay, so let's talk about anxious. So from the top of your head to the bottom of your toes, where do you feel anxious in your body when you think about finances?
Thinking about finances,
and people not having the money
and
to
not
pay
having the money and everything is more of the lower part of the body, because it's a low resonating, vibration, right? And so it's more like in the stomach area, the gut area, because it's like you're holding on, and that's your elimination processes, right? So you kind of hold on to those old fears, and it's the martyr, the poor little me, the victim, it's kind of all in that, right? So it's kind of a mixture, right?
Okay, let's try that. And everything you say has got to be true. So if I say something and ask you to repeat it, and you go, Katie, that's not really true for me. Will you rephrase it so that it's true for you?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we start on the side of the hand, and I'm going to repeat exactly what we're doing just in case somebody's listening to the audio only. So on the side of the hand, and you can use either hand, you're going to start and tap on the side of the hand. There you go. And you're going to say, and your audience can tap along with us and repeat after us and say, even though When I think that people may not have money to buy my services.
When I think people may not have the money to buy my services.
I feel this anxiousness
I feel this anxiousness
in my stomach.
in my stomach.
Right here, right now, I feel safe anyway.
Right here, right now, I feel safe anyway.
Okay, we're going to repeat that 2 more times.
Okay.
Even though, when I think that people may not have money to buy my services,
and I think people may not have the money to buy my services,
my stomach's filled with anxiousness.
my stomach is kind of filled with anxiousness.
Yeah. Right here, right now, I feel safe anyway.
Right here, right now, I still feel safe.
Mm-hmm. 3rd time. Even though my stomach has all this anxiousness.
My stomach has all this anxiousness.
Just thinking that people may not have money to buy my services.
Just thinking that, wow, people might not have money to buy my services.
Right. And right here, right now, I feel safe anyway.
Well, right here, right now, I still feel safe.
And then patting on the top of your head, you can use either hand or both, it doesn't matter. And say, this anxious feeling in my stomach.
Whew, this anxious feeling in my stomach.
And then on the edge of your eyebrow, right above your nose, you tap and say, this anxious feeling in my stomach.
This anxious feeling in my stomach.
And then on the side of the eye, between your eye and your hairline.
Can we do both sides?
Yeah, you can. It doesn't matter. And you can tap it and say, my stomach feels so anxious.
Huh, my stomach feels so anxious.
And then under your eye, again, you can use one or the other or both. It doesn't matter. And this is where I store all my bags, Beverly. I feel so anxious in my stomach.
You're supposed to take those bags back to the grocery store, recycle.
Yeah,
Okay.
recycle. I feel so anxious in my stomach.
Oh gosh, I feel so anxious in my stomach. Yeah, right now I'm laughing, so I know things have been lifting right here, because that's part of the whole thing, you know.
Exactly, it's a release.
Your whole volume of your body shifts, and especially when you listen to the tone of the voice, right? And your expressions, right? Okay.
And then under the nose, above the lips, you tap right there and say, I feel so anxious in my stomach.
I feel so anxious in my stomach.
And then under your lips, above your chin, I feel anxious in my stomach.
I feel anxious in my stomach.
And then using both hands, you can tap on your collarbone, or if you want to use one hand, just spread it out so that you hit both bones. And say, I feel so anxious in my stomach.
I feel so anxious in my stomach.
And then the last spot is about 4 inches under your arm, right on your ribs. And oh, I have so much anxiousness in my stomach.
Oh, I have so much anxiousness in my stomach.
And then Beverly, blow all your air out. And then take a breath. Now that was a very, very quick, simple round. There's a lot more to it.
Right. You know, I feel this tingling when I took that last breath in. It's like, whoa, all my legs are just tingling. So
that's great.
Yeah. Some people are sensitive to their bodies and they're not. And I'm very sensitive when I do energy work and things.
Yeah.
But again, it's recognizing, right? The changes and the shifting. You know, so when you really start to pay attention, and that's one of the things that I talk with, you know, with my clients as well, is listen, recognize, feel your body shifting, you know, because that awareness gives you those aha moments. You know, so a lot of times when I'm working with them, all of a sudden they take this like a sigh, and that's also a sign. You know, some people will break down crying. Some people start laughing, just laughing, uncontrollable, right?
Or yawning.
Yawning is a good one, right? Or just all of a sudden, total silence, like, what just happened?
I did this on a podcast with an interviewer, and he had never heard of tapping before. And
gosh.
And we did the tapping, and he could not speak for the next 3 minutes. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to pick it up here.
All right, let me take over the show.
Yeah, no, he was kind of like, what just happened? I said, oh, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
Well, the body has to acclimate and to adjust. Again, we're talking about energies. And when you know, when big things move, it kind of look like here, okay, we're in the cold, right? So now it's snowing. So you have this big snow pile behind your car, and you got to go somewhere, right? So what do you got to do? You got to shovel it out of the way. Yeah. So you can look at, you know, you're shoveling the snow as the tapping part, and when you get down to the cement and now it's gone, you feel this relief, like, oh, I can get out.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of what the soul feels like, right? When you eliminate all that old heavy baggage that you've been carrying around, that's been stuck, all of a sudden it's gone. And it can be gone just that fast. And when it does, the body has to acclimate with it, and it kind of takes its breath away, so to speak, and just starts, putting all the pieces into place.
Recalibrating.
Exactly. So modalities are very, very powerful, regardless of what they are.
Oh, yeah.
And how you can really start working on cleaning up all this old stuff, because you know as well as I do, and a lot of my listeners have heard this before, when we've talked, is that 95% of all of this old stored baggage isn't even yours. Just like the gal that you'd mentioned with the math, right? Her trauma with math was associated with her roommate committing suicide. Right?
Nothing to do with her.
Nothing to do with her. So what happened now is every time there was a trauma, or every time death was seen, or anytime anything that related with that, even just going into a dorm, would solidify more of all of that stuff unconsciously.
Sure.
Wasn't in her thought, but it was unconsciously. So not only did you clear up that anxiousness around math, but all of that trauma and all of the attachment things that came with that, and to clear up even the thought of suicide and all of that, changed this young lady's life, right? Completely. And so this is the cool thing about what we do, Katie, is helping people to release all this stuff.
Right.
The unseen is greater than what we think we know when we start that processing. All the underlying currents, right, that just begin to disappear. And that's when you start having the flashbacks of clearing. When it's gone, it's like, oh, I haven't thought about this in years, but it doesn't impact me anymore. Right. So doing modalities and clearing helps you to really reveal and get back down into the truth of the identity of who you are. That's what started my journey, is I had lost my identity. It was nothing but by association. So ask yourself, where is your truth of who you are? What makes you? And is it all by association? Right? Versus what's the true essence of who you are? So it's a beautiful thing that you do. And tapping, I'm one of those tappers that kind of self-taught. I mean, I had a little bit of training and went through some of it, but not on the levels where you went. Mine went in a different direction. But the ability to work on those different levels and those different depths is changing lives. And
I can
that's
see it.
the key element.
The process has been amazing.
Yeah. And like you said, when you started really getting into the background traumas and then past lives, so you look at trauma and past lives, they're kind of like one and the same.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now not everyone believes in past lives, right?
Doesn't matter if you believe or not.
And no, it doesn't.
It's like gravity. You don't have to believe in gravity, but things are still going to fall and go towards you.
That's right. So when it's like I kind of turn that around. It's like whatever that belief is, if it's a generation, because and this was kind of a theory that was thrown out to me, oh my God, probably 20 years ago, with past lives versus current, what's going on, is that it's coming down through the bloodline, so I am feeling the knife in the back from Uncle Charlie in the war, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
yeah.
well, should we get rid of Uncle Charlie's knife? We can do that. Because you don't need to carry it with you, right?
No.
So again, it doesn't matter what the story is. It matters you clean up the piece of the story that's blocking and locking in pain, confusion, fears, anxieties, right?
All of that.
Yeah. So you don't have to know what it is, because it's that needle in the haystack, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Beverly, I have to go off, and I can't tell you enough how much I really appreciate you and the show and the difference that you're making in so many people.
Well, we're gonna
You're,
have to just get you back,
yes, do. Let's
and
do it
we'll
again.
do a part two, and we'll
Sounds good.
give it an opportunity for the rest of the audience to get to know a little bit more about what you do. And if people want to reach you, Katie, how do they reach you?
So I always give my phone number. Nobody calls, so we'll try this. I'll give my phone number. It's area code 772-480-0541. 772-480-0541. You can email me also at hello@drnall.com. That's HELLO @DRNALL.com.
Okay, that's simple enough right there, right? All right, well, reach out to Katie. And Katie, thank you again so much for being here.
Thank you.
It's time to go be that best you that you can be, because what? Katie and I are going to come out here and be the best we that we can be. Go keep doing all that great work, and we'll see you on another show.